into that, as usual, for those of you that are watching on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share it if you can. And for those of you that are listening on Spotify, Apple, or any other podcasting platform, please follow, give us a 5-star review if you can. It really helps with the algorithms. Anyway, let's get into the games. We're going to start first with Ipswich Town against Man United. This was at Ipswich's ground. It was, as I said, Ruben Amorim's first game as Man United manager, head coach, whatever you want to call him. And it obviously ended up as a 1-1 draw between the two teams. It was a decent game, especially the way it started. So I'll just quickly run through kind of what happened. Obviously, within the first, I think, 90 seconds, you had a great run from Amad Diallo down the right-hand side, who started as kind of your right wing-back. And a nice little cross into the box. Keeper probably could have done a little bit better, but Rashford manages to get ahead of him at the front post and tap it in, really, for what is a very, very quick start to Amorim's campaign as Man United manager. From there, it kind of dulls down a little bit. You know, there are good chances on both sides, really, but it just comes down to it that neither side can really finish their dinner. And Onana is playing out of his skin and manages to make an unbelievable few saves, especially to stop Liam Delap, who's been on fire recently. Then you obviously see a goal out of the blue, I think. I don't think you can really say it was an excellent opportunity or chance, really. I don't think in this day and age you can even call it a chance. But Omari Hutchinson slaps one with his left foot, gets a deflection, I believe. Can't remember off of who, but manages to kind of take a little bit of a change in trajectory and go a little bit higher. And manages to go into the top left corner, beating Onana. You know, I think he even managed to get a finger on it, but there's still nothing he can do about it. And it goes to 1-1. From there, again, it's a lot of the same, and it ends up being a 1-1 draw. And obviously, for some Man United fans, it kind of burst the bubble a little bit around some of the excitement with Ruben Amorim. But obviously, he came out very well after the game too, talked about it, was very open and discussed a lot about his tactics and how he sees the game. So very insightful game, and he definitely looks like a very insightful manager. So let's start off, Ant. How did you see the game going? Do you think you deserve to win, lose? I mean, I think the XG ended up being in Ipswich's favour, but that doesn't necessarily always tell an accurate picture of the game. So how do you think it went, and are you happy with the point?
I think in the end, I'm happy with the point. I think it was a fair result. If you look at the XG, Ipswich obviously had more like shots on goal and forced a few more saves out of Onana than we did Muric. But we had a bunch of 2-on-1 counter-attacks where Garnacho in particular spurned them in the end, making the wrong decision, waiting too long, holding onto the ball for too long. So in some ways, it was quite similar to the last 6 months of Ten Hag, really. Not a huge amount of problem in terms of creating opportunities, but a lot of bad decision making, and a lot of players choosing the wrong options when they do get into good positions. So it was quite frustrating in a lot of ways, but I think a 1-1 draw is probably about fair because, like you said, Onana made some really good saves. I think he made 2 good saves from Delap, another one from Chaplin. So yeah, if you look at probably the bigger opportunities like on goal, I think Ipswich were probably deserving of the win. But if you look at the amount of times we broke on them and had 2-on-1s, 3-on-2s, and could have potentially had a really big goal scoring opportunity if we made the right final decision, I think that was leaning much more in our direction. So it was probably just about fair. But now, man, it was an interesting match to watch. I don't think it was the highest quality. I think Amorim's analysis of the game at the end was pretty much spot on. I haven't really. I mean, this might be me drinking the Kool-Aid really, really soon, but I think a lot of the things he said both like pre-game and post-game have been pretty spot on. And I don't think it's like been sugarcoating anything or selling us dreams or whatever. I think he's pretty much just called it how he's seen it, which I think a lot of United fans have been doing for a while under Ten Hag, and a lot of rival fans have probably been doing, but maybe with a little bit extra sauce or a little bit extra vim that you normally get with rivals. But I think he analysed the game fairly well. Like a lot of his, a lot of players did look a bit confused. I think some players took to it like a duck out of water, but some people clearly were struggling. You could see, like he pointed out, Evans struggling to play in that left centre back space, not pressuring people, not closing people down. But to be honest, that should be expected. I don't think Evans should play in either of the wider kind of centre back positions. He's probably most suited to the centre back position. Um, so that was kind of obvious. I think Dalot was quite poor, and he didn't. He looked very confused because, and again, like Amorim said at the end of the game, he's used to playing right or left back, tucking into midfield, doing the kind of the extra man in midfield that a lot of top teams do recently. And his formation asks for the wingers to be basically hugging the touchline throughout the whole game. And so you could see Dalot, I think, had a poor game both defensively and going forward. So there was some bright sparks. I think Ahmad looked like he'd been playing that position for a long time. I think he really impressed. I think Bruno was really, really efficient and economical with the ball. He did. I couldn't remember any Hollywood balls, and everything pretty much he kept under control and did the short, simple passes. So that's what we want from Bruno, right? But it didn't sacrifice his creative ability because he still was playing really accurate long balls over the top to set Garnacho free. He just didn't seem like he got it and like launched it every time, which we've seen from him for the last year and a half, 2 years maybe. So there were positives and negatives, but yeah, ultimately I think a draw is probably fair. And like you said, some giddy United fans are probably going to be a little bit deflated. Some rival fans who kind of were watching those United fans go over the top are probably going to be laughing and thinking it's a bit of a humbler. But for the kind of fair-minded people that understand, what football's going to be like when you get a new manager and like strip back all the hype and stuff, I feel like it was as expected. I don't know what you thought of the game. What did you make of it?
No, I think we watched it together, so you know that I kind of thought I definitely felt I saw better patterns of play from the team. I felt like you were a lot more intentional about how you wanted to play on the ball, particularly, and I also like the kind of defensive formation. A big complaint I've always had about Man United is, and about actually about England as well in the Euros. I had a big complaint about this too, which is leaving far too much space in between you and the closest man. And I don't think that's any way to defend unless you've got a bunch of Kyle Walkers that can really just eat up space and eat up ground. And I don't think you guys do. You really don't. I mean, outside of maybe now Ugarte, you don't have anyone that really eats the turf, right? Like you don't have some monster that's just able to make up ground really quickly. And I think as a result, when you leave so much space, it makes it really easy for another team, especially a well-organized team, to get in between the gaps and to make space for themselves, and it gives them too much time on the ball. And I think part of what you're talking about with Johnny Evans and not knowing how to, or not being able to close down as quickly as maybe Amorim would favour, I think that's going to be critical. I don't think you've got a lot of profiles that suit like a high intensity closing down kind of football off the ball. And so it made sense that he played like a more compact defensive formation, and you could see a lot less space in between all of your players, which was really good. So overall, I thought I saw really promising things from the team. But the thing that you can't make up for with the system is the individual quality, right? You still need to be able to have people that can finish their dinner. You still need to be able to have people that can close down and have enough legs to do what they need to do. And you still need to have people that make the right runs. They go to the right places, right? And I think this is still the problem that Man United have, right? I think it will depend on how good of a coach he is and how good of a coach the rest of his staff are, to really get the most out of this team. Because I think the system can be fixed quite quickly, but the individual quality, the experience, the knowledge, all of that stuff will take a little bit longer. So, with people like Højlund, people like Xerxes, even people like Garnacho, teaching them in the case of Garnacho, teaching him how to finish his dinner. If he does that, then he's going to be like a 20 goal a season kind of winger, I think, because he gets in really good positions. With Højlund, he's got the finishing, but you just need to tell him where to go. Because I saw a bunch of, a couple of highlights basically of after when he came on yesterday, and he's just making the wrong runs. Like he's trying to go for the pullback when Xerxes already there for the pullback, And it's like, okay, just make a run into the box and try and actually get your head on the end of it. You're a number 9, do what Haaland does, get in the right places, and you'll get goals. So if he can make each individual player a little bit better, I think he's going to have a great time at Man United. But I also think that some of the players he's not going to be able to get the best out of, and he's going to have to shift them and get new players in. So that was what I took from the game, really, is system already looks better. We'll probably keep getting better as you guys get more used to it. It won't always work against every team you play against because, as I've said before, there's so many different styles in the Premier League, really. Well, not even styles, but so many different tacticians and different ways of managers to like neutralize certain threats. It's not going to work every week, and he's going to have to figure out things. And you know what I've said about Arsenal before. It's like having multiple styles of play is pretty critical in the Premier League. So yeah, overall, I thought it was positive. Um, do you agree? I know that we talked about this before, and you've got a big gripe about people saying that Ten Hag had no style, but did you see kind of this new style with Amorim already from that first 90 minutes?
Yeah, I think the things he's been saying in the press conferences are I think a lot of people have taken them as him kind of trying to deflect or whatever when he says like playing with a back 3 and a back 4 is not that different. My formation, the 3-4-3 is not that different to a 4-3-3 and a 4-4-2, etc. And essentially, I don't disagree with him because I think you could see some similarities in terms of the good things of Amorim's first game was what you said. Like the defense and midfield was way more compact. So you didn't see a lot of people breaking lines, running through the whole, midfield like you did under Ten Hag. And so that compact nature, I think at the back end of last season, if you remember, like the last 3 or 4 games that we had in the league and the FA Cup final, Ten Hag's United were quite compact as well. We stopped
Yeah.
conceding goals. You stopped conceding chances. So there are elements that that within all of this style of play conversation, there are a lot of similarities and a lot of parallels, and there are a lot of traits that are positives regardless of whatever the formation is that you always want to see in your team. And I think defensively, you always want to see your team compact, and attacking, you always want like to stretch the play as much as you can. And I think from that sense, you saw a much better balanced system and style of play from Amorim yesterday. Um, and like you're right, I hate when people say there's no style of play under Ten Hag because there was. It just wasn't balanced and it was rubbish. And you had those big gaps and you had like a very extreme style of play which didn't work and people like found and picked the holes in very easily. Whereas I think with this Amorim system, um, I think it's going to be a lot harder for teams to be able to like completely rip it to shreds and like destroy it the way that people were finding it easy to do with Ten Hag's system last year. And that's not me saying it's going to work against every team. Like I agree with you. I think there are going to be times where even with Amorim sporting against City in the Champions League a couple of weeks back, you saw a much more defensive version of his 3-4-3. You saw the wingers sit a lot deeper and like kind of spring on the counter attack more than, for example, you saw Sporting against some other teams where they were favourites, right? When the wingers were higher up. So I think what you end up seeing is, kind of like an adaptation to that style of play and to that formation, depending on who the opponents are. I think he kind of probably erred a bit more on the defensive side yesterday, and I think that's more likely because, like you said, he's got a lot of players that are being put in a sink or swim situation, and so I think it's right for him, and I don't think it would be right to go more attacking, even if maybe in a year's time, if we were to play Ipswich, he might go more attacking when he has more confidence with the system and the players. But at this point in time, I think he chose the right option to be slightly more cautious and put like Dallo and Ahmad, who we talked about yesterday, being much more reliable defensively in those wing positions, rather than maybe in the future you might see a Garnacho or Rashford or someone more attacking in that position once the team feels more sturdy in this idea that he has. But no, I definitely saw it. But like I said, yeah, I think some people are expecting things to look like markedly different and it to be like, oh wow, look at this style of play. United are so much more different now than before. Whereas I don't think that will be the case. I just think you won't see the erratic nature and some of the big holes, like you said, that we saw under Ten Hag. but you will see some other traits which you may have seen at times, especially in the first season under Ten Hag and some of the good periods we had last year. So I'm not going to go big and massive on this, like, style of play versus no style of play thing, which I think a lot of other people are. But I think it was much better. Like you said, it was much more balanced and coherent. And as a United fan, I was less worried about, an attacker or a midfielder bursting through the middle, because it just, he seemed to plug those holes, and the system naturally seemed to prevent those kind of scenarios. Even if there were a few moments where, like, Delap rinsed the Ligt or someone else, like, it's inevitable. Those are one-on-ones that can happen in any system. But I think the things we remember last year from Ten Hag was, remember that Wolves game, first game of the season, when Cunha was just like, and then Mateus Nunes were like running through the middle of our pitch, and there was no one within like 10, 15 yards of them. Like, you didn't see that yesterday. So I think that's a positive, man. But let's wait and see. Let's wait and see FC for us, I think, for the next couple of months.
Yeah,
but it was encouraging, man. It was encouraging.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, I mean, to add to the encouragement, obviously, to have a manager that can actually express themselves well is a big change for you guys. It's very clear that Ten Hag was not a great communicator, at least in English. Let's give him some credit. And in Dutch, I'm sure he's riveting. But
Come
in
on,
English,
eh?
he
was a
absolutely
great
stank.
communicator, eh?
Yeah, and then when he was saying please instead of thank you and all kind of that. All right. So, but anyway, I think on that topic of having a slightly more charismatic manager, obviously he's been very, obviously as a Man United manager, you have to do all these things, but he seems to have been very open in his interviews. You know what? He's had many already. It's mental how many different bloody backgrounds I've seen him with over the last 24 hours since the end of that game. I'm just like, how have you managed to get into so many different situations to be interviewed by all these various different people? But I guess that is just part and parcel of being particularly the Man United manager, but also just the Premier League manager in general. So let's talk about that. So in his post-match interview with Sky Sports, I believe, obviously with Roy Keane right next to him, he gave an interview really going into depth about what happened in the performance, how the game was going, and obviously it being at Ipswich's ground, very famous Ipswich co-owner, advertiser, I don't know whatever his relationship is with them, but Ed Sheeran manages to get into the picture and just awkwardly kind of stand there and make a comment that Amorim probably doesn't want to talk to me. And then Amorim confirms, no, I don't really want to. And yet he stands there for another probably 10, 15 seconds, just hugging on old Jamie Redknapp, just kind of awkwardly, while Kelly Cates tries to figure out what to say and what to do. And obviously Amorim looks a bit awkward. And I've seen a lot of stuff come out. I think at the time you were getting a bit furious, and I didn't manage to catch it at the time, but you seem to be getting pretty angry. And now I've seen various different Man United fans' reactions online saying that it was out of order from Ed Sheeran to come in and just randomly gate crash, and also to just kind of stand there awkwardly for such a long time while Amorim's getting interviewed in kind of essentially his first big Sky Sports interview post the Ipswich game. So what did you make of it? Do you think Ed Sheeran's really out of order? Do you feel bad for Amorim? Like, what do you think in general? Who's to blame? And yeah, do you think it matters that much?
Yeah, I'm going to start off this with Ed Sheeran, first of all. And then, but I will say, I was livid at the time and I was losing my mind, swearing a lot more than the F bomb that I just dropped. I was absolutely going nuts. But there's part of me that still feels that way. Like, he's a cheeky C word for jumping in like that and just lingering around. But at the same time, I've read some other like rival fans and Ipswich fans and other people talk about the situation and say, the whole day was about United. It was the whole United circus, and everyone was interviewing Amorim and wanted to hear from them, and kind of Ipswich felt a little bit like overlooked in the whole situation. So from that perspective, I kind of get it. If I was in their shoes, I might be a little bit more like. I might have a bit more of a chip on my shoulder and kind of look at that and think it was class. But so I've tried to like get a bit more of a balanced opinion on it. But I mean, I just to be honest, I don't even want to hammer Ed Sheeran, because like at the same time, you know, it's banter. It's not that deep. It's it's not something to absolutely hold on to for the rest of your life. Although I'm probably going to try. Um, it's more like the broadcasters thing. Like I was shocked. There's been some weird moments with Sky. Do you not remember? I think there was a game post game when Stormzy like rolled into the
Yeah, wearing a pair
analysis
of flip
and
flops.
was
I
hugging everyone
remember.
up. Yeah, wearing a
Yeah.
pair of Yeezys or whatever, and it was just the whole thing was amateurish, and that wasn't even negative to United because he's a big United fan and big him up and whatever else. But you just expect the broadcasters to be a bit more professional with it and not just like let random people just like come in and gate crash things and waffle rubbish. Because I mean, as much as people rate Stormzy and he does a lot of great things in the community, he's not the best speaker. We've seen that famous like interview when he's on the radio and he's like blah 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 blah, blah and he has like a bloody like he completely loses his mind and doesn't know how to speak for like a good minute or so. So he's not the most, he's not the best communicator when it comes to non-musical forms of communication. So, and he's nothing to do with sport. So it's all just like a big celebrity attention grab, aim to go viral type situation, which I don't think the broadcasters should be in that game, really, to be honest. They're just supposed to show us the coverage, offer professional analysis, and keep it moving. But so Sky have form for that. So I'm more shocked at them just being like the amount of runners and people, floor managers and people that I know that are at that game that can prevent it in the case of like, imagine a crazed fan comes on there, which I know in the background Roy Keane was beefing with an Ipswich fan. There's clips of that going
In
around.
the car
If
park.
that guy
Yeah.
tried, yeah, in the car park. If that guy tried to come on and try and beef him or stab him or do something crazy, those guys would have stopped it. I know they've got people around them, security and floor managers and all these guys to stop it. So why, like, they obviously just allowed Ed Sheeran to come in and gate crash it because they were trying to create a viral moment. So I'm not even going to hammer Ed Sheeran as much as I think he's a twat for doing that. Because I get the whole, the what I talked about earlier, like, Ipswich have probably felt like they wanted a bit more attention in this game. Um, but at the same time, like Sky have totally allowed that. They've probably manufactured it, and it stinks. So I just thought it was very amateur, and probably a lot of people, United fans, have gone, "Damn, that's the moment when Amorim's realised this is the circus he's rocking into." When Sky have set him up for Ed Sheeran to come and gate crash his first post match interview, because you say he looked awkward. I thought he looked livid. I thought if he had a chance, he would have tried to bloody strangle Ed Sheeran at that moment, like because he just jumped in, and you could see Ed Sheeran was like, "I don't think he wants to talk to you," like you said, and he was like, "No, I don't want to talk to you." And he was like, literally, he looked like he had steam coming out of his ears. Which, to be honest, I haven't seen Amorim look angry, even when you had Sky reporters in Portugal asking him to speak English and pee him off and disrespect him in other ways. He's always seemed to smile and kind of keep it pushing. But that's probably the most angry I've seen him so far. So yeah, I just thought the whole thing was amateur, man. I thought it was like the broadcasters desperately trying to manufacture a viral moment. And yeah, it stunk. And Ed Sheeran, yeah, don't like you anymore, mate. You can do one.
Oh, we've got another Leon Bailey situation on our hands, fellas.
Sancho,
I mean,
Bailey.
yeah, I'll say a couple of things about this. Number one, to famously quote Kanye West, I like some of Ed Sheeran's songs. What the does he know about football? You know what I mean? That's the first thing I'll say. The second thing I'll say is that Sky they've got a history doing this, right? You talk about the Stormzy moment. They had bloody Noel Gallagher doing comms
No, that was
for a match,
TNT.
didn't they?
That was
TNT,
TNT.
sorry. But I mean, like in terms of the
TNT, yeah.
broadcasters, this is not like this is part and
Yeah.
parcel of what goes on, right? We've seen them choose players, or not even players, sorry, just choose people that have got nothing to do with the sport to come in for these viral moments because that's how they get their crossover moments. That's how they get their social content and so on and so forth. So it's definitely kind of part and parcel of what seems to be happening with football right now. And I think there's obviously been a long history between music and sport, right? Particularly in America, but also starting to bleed over here too. So it doesn't surprise me all that much, but it's more just like it wasn't really a viral moment in my mind. Like it wasn't funny. It was just awkward, and I don't want to watch it again. Right? Like maybe a couple of people will watch it once just to see what happened, but there's nothing about that moment that makes me happy or like makes me feel entertained in any kind of way. It just feels awkward. It's like nails on a blackboard. I'm just like, I don't want to look at this anymore because it just looks like Ed Sheeran's a bit dopey. It looks like he's probably had a couple of pints. Amorim's looking at the floor, touching his ear, as you say, kind of either slash, awkward slash angry, and then you've just got Roy Keane smiling, looking at it all, thinking like, what the hell is going on? And I think the angry thing probably tracks to why Roy Keane seemed to be like enamored by Ruben Amorim. He was just staring at him with a
I
smile on
thought
his
he
face
loved
the
him.
whole time.
Yeah, he loved him.
And it was just like he probably could see a bit of anger in him and thinking, yeah, this is my kind of manager. Because even without like really outwardly showing it, he had that kind of Fergie-esque, like you can see this guy, there's something going on in his head. So very funny moment. I think Kelly Cates dealt with it well because I mean, what's she supposed to do? Just tell bloody Ed Sheeran to jog on, and we'll talk to you later. I think she did her best to manage it. I think Jamie Redknapp did poorly. Even after Ed Sheeran left, he was just looking for him like a crazed fan the whole time, barely even listening to Ruben Amorim. And I'm thinking, have some respect. You stank both as a player and as a commentator slash pundit, right? All you got going for you is you're a good-looking geezer. You dress pretty well, but let's be honest. In terms of your content and what you say, you don't belong on that bloody panel, right? We could get a bar of soap with better bloody things to say about football than him.
Charisma.
So, yeah, no, overall, it was a funny moment, and I hope to see many more of these weird, awkward, funny moments for Amorim, just for banter. But I did kind of feel bad for him a little bit, and just in general for everybody on that panel, because it was a very strange and awkward moment.